Captain America Civil War. I'm not going to make friends with this video, but I'm very okay with that. Because this needs to be said with what I'm about to say. If this angers you, all I can say, please hear me out for the rest of the video before you click off. But Captain America Civil War is one of the at least top 5 worst Marvel movies. It is not the worst, but it is on the list. It's got a lot of great things going for it, but the overall point of this movie is so ridiculously flawed for no fucking reason that I can't understand. So if you don't know, Civil War is one of Marvel's top-selling comics of all time. So it was a no-brainer that they were going to adapt this storyline, right? And I've never read that storyline, but what I will say is this is a big deal for Marvel fans. Like, I think this was the moment people really started getting into Marvel. Like, you know, before that with the Avengers and stuff, they were kind of there, but this was the moment, like, everybody saw a Marvel movie. Everybody was talking about it. It was a big deal back in 2016. And, yeah, I mean, this movie was a huge movie. And I gotta say, let's start with the positives. I love Black Panther in this movie, which is so odd to say because while Chadwick Boseman was good in the role and the first Black Panther is a fine enough movie, it's a pretty flawed movie. When you watch that movie and then watch this movie, it's really bizarre because not Captain America, Black Panther is given an amazing character arc, and in his own movie, he is sidelined so bad he doesn't have a character arc. It almost felt like that's what this is the character arc he has in this movie of learning to get over his revenge and rage that had consumed him after losing his father, and him getting the mantle of Black Panther. That would have been a great Black Panther movie, but instead, that's not what happens here. It's really bizarre. They sidelined him into this movie. Spider-Man, all of his stuff is great. You know, this is the first time we actually saw Spider-Man in the MCU, so it was really great. Ant-Man actually was really good in this movie and actually very funny, which I do not feel that way about his other movies, so he's really good here. And some of the character work with Wanda and Vision actually in the background is pretty nice and really does add a lot of context once you see WandaVision. And despite the reason that they're fighting not making any sense and is completely awful, the airport fight scene is one of the greatest fight scenes in all of Marvel movies and is incredibly well done, choreographed, and well thought out of how each character moved and kind of went through that. So yeah, the reason why this movie is one of the worst Marvel movies to me is there is no reason for these fucking characters to be fighting. Like, and it's kind of weird because there's a lot of groundwork of why these characters should be fighting each other, but the actual reason the main reason of the plot makes absolutely no sense. Basically, General Ross comes in and goes, "Hey guys, I want you to sign this contract of when you're supposed to be able to save the world," or whatever. And of course, Iron Man feels guilty over some of the damage they've done since he created Ultron, which I get it, but he feels guilty over that. And Steve is like, "No, I don't want the government trying to control what I do," you know? And so they clash over that. Here's the problem with that storyline. Basically, everyone here who's fighting on Steve's side and Iron Man's side both acknowledge they ain't gonna fucking obey this contract. Like, in Infinity War, did Iron Man go to the government and say, "Hey, I'm gonna go fight Thanos"? No, he didn't. So what's the point of the reason that they're fighting in this movie? Nobody obeys this contract. Even in the airport fight sequence, Black Widow and Hawkeye are fighting, and she's like, "We're still friends." And he's like, "Depends how hard you hit me." So funny. No, it's not really funny because I'm supposed to feel the weight of these characters splitting up and not fighting and all that drama, but you're playing it off like it's a joke, and it's kind of weird, and That's the problem with this movie. Because once you get to Infinity War, this movie is rendered worthless. This whole Sokovia Accord contract, whatever. And if you wanted the Avengers to fight and split up, which I'm not against that idea, great. Here's what you do. You rearrange the plot and you make it so basically Bucky gets framed for the murder of Black Panther father, just like he does in the movie, and then via our villain, it gets out that Bucky actually murdered Tony Stark's parents, and he finds about this over the news or whatever. Calls Steve up and asks him if this is true. Steve doesn't deny it. Then they fight. That's the movie. You do not need all this needless bullshit of, well, we're going to sign this contract, or we're going to sign this contract, because it doesn't make sense in any form at all. If no one's going to obey the contract, then why are you fighting over this contract? Like, why are you guys ready to beat each other up over something you both agree that you're not going to do? Because Captain America and Infinity War doesn't sign a contract and do anything, and Iron Man, who did sign the contract, doesn't get it signed off. So what is the point of this conflict? And it's funny because you'll see reviews from the time of this movie being like, well, this movie's really great because you can see both sides. First of all, a movie called Civil War, yeah, you're supposed to kind of understand both sides to some extent. But like, no, but also like, you don't understand both sides. Why are they fighting? Like, genuinely, why are they fighting? It just, there's also way too much going on in this movie because of all that Sokovia Accord stuff that makes, like, a lot of this movie kind of boring. Like, I enjoy a lot of the character stuff, but until we get to some of those action scenes, a lot of this movie is really slow and just plotting, and you're just like, what the fuck are we doing? It's not a horrible movie, but genuinely, this is not the one of the great Marvel movies that a lot of these fans treat it as. I'm sorry, the airport fight sequence is cool, but it's all built on nonsense that should have never happened. The Sokovia Accords should have never been a plotline in the MCU. I don't know if it is in the comics or whatever, but just because it is in the comics doesn't mean it needs to happen in the Marvel movies. And if it is in the comics and you want to bring it in the Marvel movies, write it better. Don't write it in a way like this.